In this lesson, we will inspect a Hello World application in order to gain a better understanding of the components that make up Spring MVC's request processing lifecycle. Using our Hello World application, we'll be able to see the major components that make up Spring MVC's architecture. To begin, we're going to create a Spring MVC project by using a template. Click on the File option within the menu. You can then select New and then Spring Project. This will open the New Spring Project dialog, and we'll need to provide a project name for our project. I'm just going to use Hello-World. Next, we'll need to select a template. A template is a pre-configured project. We want to use a pre-configured Spring MVC project. This is going to establish all of our configurations for us, and we will have a working Spring MVC project shell right off the bat. Once you've selected the template, hit Next, and now we need to specify a top-level package. This is the package that will contain all of our classes. We're going to use com.infiniteskills.mvc, and then we're just simply going to hit Finish. You will see that STS will begin to build our project. Once it's done building, that warning will go away. It just went away, and now we can take a look at the project. What we see right off the bat is that this is a Maven project. We have a pom.xml file. It has the dependencies needed to run a Spring Web MVC application. All of the jar files we need are on our class path. You'll also notice we're using Maven's standard directory layout, so all of the web files are going to be within the source main web app directory. And then in the webinf directory, we're really going to find all of our Spring configuration files. These are going to tell the Spring MVC framework how to behave. Let's dive right in and start this application. All we need to do is go to the project, right-click, and then select Run As, and then Run on Server. This is going to load our Spring MVC application onto the Pivotal TC server. Here we see a simple Hello World web page that displays our current date and our current time. Let's talk a little bit about how this web page got served by the Spring MVC architecture. If we head back to STS, the first thing we're going to look at is the web XML file for our project. And I'm going to maximize this file. What you'll see within it is that we have set up a servlet. It's the dispatcher servlet, and the dispatcher servlet serves as our front controller. It is responsible for accepting requests and returning responses. When this dispatcher servlet loads, it needs to be told some configuration that is going to define its behavior. We set up this init parameter within the web.xml file, and we specify a servlet-context.xml file. You could name this file anything you would like. Servlet-context seems to be pretty much a standard. What Spring does is when it instantiates the dispatcher servlet, it loads this configuration file. Let's open that file and take a look. Within this file is configuration that tells the dispatcher servlet how to behave. We're not going to worry about the details of these configurations right now. Just know that Spring consults other XML files when it loads the dispatcher servlet to determine its behavior. You'll also notice this root context.xml file that will get loaded by our context loader listener. When the application initializes, we're going to load another context aside from the web application context loaded by the dispatcher servlet. This application context defined in the root-context.xml file is going to define things like other Spring beans that we need to perform our logic. So maybe we will have our JPA repository stored in there. Maybe there'll be something like our security configuration. We'll see how these two files interact throughout the course. Once the dispatcher servlet has started up, it sits there and it waits to process requests. When we head to our browser and we send a request to the server, the dispatcher servlet looks at that URL, then it attempts to find a controller that can handle that URL. The controllers are mapped within the servlet context.xml file, or at least a strategy is defined to map to them. Here we see the home controller. It is responsible for servicing all requests to our context root. We can see that because there is a mapping defined. And you also notice that this class, let me expand that, is annotated with controller. So this signals to Spring that this class is responsible for processing requests. And it's responsible for processing requests to our context root. We see that we have some logging go on. We create a new date. Basically, we are formatting a string that contains today's date. Then we place it within our model. So here we see this model that was defined as an argument to our home method. It's a simple method. And we are adding an attribute to that model, the server time. Then we're providing a value of formatted date. This is the model piece of Spring MVC we're talking about. The model basically acts as a map, so there's name and value pairs stored. It is passed to our view. You'll notice that our controller returns a string of home. That's going to load our home.jsp file because of the configuration we've provided within the servlet context.xml file. Basically, you'll see this bean here, internal resource view resolver, and it has a prefix and a suffix, so it's going to take the string home and prefix webinf views, and then it's going to add the suffix .jsp. If we find that file within our project, there we see views, well, we see webinf views, and then home.jsp. This is the view we're going to display. And you'll notice how it references an attribute that was stored within our model. Once this JSP has rendered, it is then returned to our client as the response and displayed on their browser. This is just very bare bones request processing with Spring MVC. There's a little bit more complexity within the framework that allows us to achieve better development standards and makes a lot of the work that is required with building a web application faster and easier.